your first book of poetry is from the early 90s.
Yeah, I did a chapbook. Well, actually, before I did a chapbook, I did a cassette, like a homemade cassette, and that was called A Day in the Life of a Working Poor Xylophone Maker. It was a mixture of stuff I read in my room and then stuff from a live reading that was done. And then the first chapbook was called Mantra's Best Friend, Man's Best Friend. And I drew the drawings, like there was a picture of an owl, like Alan Watts.
So before 1990, how long have you been writing before that time?
I started writing when I was really little, but I wasn't too confident about it. So I kind of was very shy about it. And then when I lived
When you say little, you mean like you were 10, you were 15?
Yeah, I was more like...
7?
Yeah, somewhere like pretty young stories. I wrote a series of stories where I would come to Los Angeles and I would meet Barry Manilow.
Because in one of your poems you say that you thought Barry Manilow was like a sex symbol or something like that.
Yeah, I really was crushed out. So I had this whole, like kind of we call it trilogy of stories that I wrote. And then when I lived in New York in the mid-'80s, I was going to different places as an apprentice, so I was an apprentice at the Actors Studio. And one day I was feeling kind of, I don't know, a little under the weather, and I walked by a bookstore, and there was something in the window I saw, and I was living at the 92nd Street Y, and these lines of poems just came to me, and I just went back, and the poem just came, because it's called Through Osmosis, and that's how it's happened. Basically, poems just come to me when they're ready.
How does a poem like come to you, or how do you start a poem?
It's interesting because it doesn't, it just kind of happens, like something will just spark it, and then it happens really quickly. I don't, tend to do a lot of revising or anything. It just kind of comes.
Do you write by hand?
It depends. Sometimes I write by hand. What I've been doing a lot with the music, collaboration with Robbie, who I've been working with, is that he'll just start composing something. He plays a lot the piano, so he'll compose something or have a musical idea, and at the same time, I'll just start writing in the notebook. It's really exciting.
So Robbie starts playing, and then from that music or that musical input, you respond by writing.
Yeah, and we're just the songs are. That's how that video, A Matter of When. That's how that happened. That's how things happen, and it's really cool.
The video is great because it has. Like the images, it's very casual, but it's very appealing. I think the music is great, your poetry is wonderful. Everything works together in the video.
There is only the memory of whatever was. There is only a glimpse of a kaleidoscope wish. There is only tomorrow leaving its footprints on today. There was a lighthouse overlooking the sea, like a cloud full of fire. Things were encroaching. It was only a matter of time.
You mentioned Frank O'Hara. You also mentioned Mayakovsky. Do you have poets that you consider a relevant influence in your poetry writing?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the beat poets like Ginsberg and Corso. And you know what, it's funny, also I'm inspired a lot by songwriters. Like I love Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen and Phil Oakes, and the songwriters like Stephen Sondheim and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Rodgers and Hart and Gershwin, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny, this is really cool, and this just only happened a couple of days ago. Robbie was playing the piano, and instead of responding in a poem, I responded in a melody that I sang to him. Like it came out pure singable. It came out like song. Like he was able to sing. I mean, there was no spoken. It completely was. So I think that we just had some sort of chippy thing happen. Like that just that's never happened. Like it just was that kind of song. So that's very exciting at the direction of this exploration of collaboration.
So you have had this kind of hybridization between poetry and music for a long time, even though lately, because your band is from 2010, is that right? So even there's a recent band, but you have had this kind of connection with music for a long time.
Yeah, my work has so many references to music, and here and there, like through the years, like I've been involved. Where like they used to have a show called Man in the Moon on KCRW, and they would mix poetry with music, or sometimes someone would do something and I'd read a poem for someone's album or something with music. So it's never been to the extent it is disinfused, but there's always been a musical thread, I think, in some way. Yeah.
You have many references to music. You have you mentioned Don Henley, Arlo Guthrie, the band Midnight Oil.
Yeah.
Peter Garrett.
Yeah, from Peter Garrett.
Leonard Cohen, Van Morrison. So yeah, you have a lot of references to music. Some of your poems are very exhausting in the sense that you keep writing and writing until you have like nothing left to say about a topic. Like you twist the topic or the subject and you write from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west. And some examples could be Being an Artist and Coffee House Cantata, where I think they're very kind of famous poems by you. And the other one is Fido.
You know, it just really happens. Like the once a poem starts, it just sort of really just, it's just a journey, like just getting it, like it just really comes. I don't really think much about it.
Yeah, you don't plan it.
No.
Like I'm gonna write an exhausting poem.
No. I mean, it's just like it's just. I mean, hopefully, it's that it's enjoyable. I think the work's pretty accessible, and luckily it quite often has humor in it and stuff. So it kind of hopefully is a neat experience. But I mean, most of the time I've gotten really positive reactions for my work. But when I don't. Like I had somebody write once that I was the reason people hated poetry, because people usually really have strong reactions and it's usually really positive. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I'm honored. But sometimes they go really the extreme, and it's almost like it gets so intense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a funny thing.
Does it affect you?
Well, it's a little strange, that's such a major thing for them to say. But I mean, I think that if that was the majority, of response, that would be hard to, that would be painful to deal with. But I think that it's just interesting that it just seems like I wrote some poem, I forget what, that bring out extremes, because it's usually, very encouraging. I feel grateful, because the community is always, since the beginning, because I'm very shy. They were thinking that instead of me reading, because I was too shy, maybe someone else would read it. Maybe I'd never read, because I was totally bashful. I went to order in restaurants when I was a child.
The poem I wanted you to read, or a segment of it, is the poem Fido, from the book The Cowardice of Amnesia. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to say something about the poem, or...
A friend of mine once said that my work was kind of like poetic narratives, So some of them have a bit of a story. Some of them have almost a structure that it comes back to. There's things that it kind of goes around circularly, that way. But I don't know how. I didn't study poetry, and I don't know much about it, truly. I mean, even very basic stuff that you might learn in a class the first day. Mm-hmm. Grammar, I'm not real good at grammar. It's just really surreal, because things just happen, but I don't have the nuts and bolts sense of it at all. It just is. I think it's just a natural.
Whatever you do is working.
Thank you. It's just trippy, though. You know what I mean? It's just life can be really a trip, can it? So okay, this is this is Fido, part of it. Fido wrote a screenplay. Fido wrote me into the screenplay. Fido is a sensitive dog. Yes, he is a dog. He is a dog in that he has 4 legs and not 2, a tail and bad odor mouth. I keep Fido's things organized. Fido's things are rulers, yarn, and bourbon crackers. Fido is a well-read dog. Fido reads Kafka. He reads aloud, and I tape curtains to the windows. He keeps milkman hours and drinks orange juice with lemon. Newspapers written in Velcro line the tables. Fido picks and hunts at the feature articles looking for the who, what, when, where, and how of a particular moment. So that's how it starts. But it's sort of like the relationship, I guess it's almost 2 outsiders. I don't know. I don't know totally how it all happens, but things happen in this, it gets kind of surreal at times, and it gets pretty imagistic, and you know, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty.
Something that you do also is in this kind of movement with the surreal and all the images, and then in between that you drop, I think, information about your biography, about the private.
Yeah.
So you have this storm, and then there's this kind of drop of information about your life. For example, you have a poem called Train that says, "I haven't worn glasses since I was 2." And I don't know if that's a real fact of your life or not, but I have seen that in your poems, that you go to these kind of crazy images, and then you come back and you reveal pieces of personal information. How do you decide, if you have any negotiation with that, how do you decide how much to reveal, how much to hide, and how to reveal without being sentimental?
Oh, well, you know what, really, I just, when the poems come, they really, I just gather away, and it kind of, everything just happens from there. I don't really know what's going to happen, but it seems to, I just trust the process, just sort of, I don't really think.
But, like, for example, do you censor yourself sometimes? Like, I want to say this about myself, and then you kind of think twice about it. Do you do that, or you just let it go, and where the poem goes, the poem goes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, yeah, just like each poem has its own process. I mean, it can get personal, it can get kind of political in the same poem. It can be very kind of sad, it can be very humorous in the same line. I mean, it just, it's very, but that's a lot of just this mixture, and I don't know.
I think that was a very good description of your work, of your style. Like, in one line, you can be political, personal, you can have humor, you can have this kind of images that are a little bit surreal or absurd, but everything happens kind of simultaneously.
I mean, I think it would be hard with, you know, maybe with images to like have to really think a lot. You know what I mean? Because it's just, it's sort of happening really fast. But I know everyone's process is a little different, and it's all like great because everyone has their own way, you know, and interesting.
Going back to the political aspect of your work, do you have a particular poem that you think has more like political edge?
Yeah, so this one's called "Wanna Be a Stripper." It's the first part of that. Wanna be a stripper? Wanna sell something? Wanna travel? I thought of being a stripper. A girl came into an open mic and said how she used to be a stripper. It was humiliating. Men are jerks to the 100th power. They made us feel like objects, she said. I thought, that sounds like my life. It sounds like women's life. Our clothes come off in other eyes. Why won't that one talk to you? Why won't that one sing a song for you? Likes your clothes, likes your mind. Strip so someone else can know you. Strip so you can know yourself. $150 a night on a slow night. As a woman, you're always on display. $4.25 an hour, you walk across the street. A man shouts, "Hey, fat girl." He strips your mind, strip mining for ladders to climb to ejaculate his ego. The land won't be the same. Stripping for yourself, putting on Neil Young records, writing a manifesto. Life is a nudist camp. If you're perceptive, you can pretty much tell where things stand.
It's extraordinary. In 2010, you created the band, the Ellyn Maybe Band, is that right?
Yeah.
And then, so could you tell us a little bit how the project started and where it is right now?
A friend of mine works at Beyond Baroque, and she was talking to some people, and she said they're really cool, but she couldn't remember their name, but they had just joined Beyond Baroque. It turned out to be my cousin, Harlan, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and he does music and stuff, and so he said, "Oh, you should come by the studio sometime, record a couple poems on a click track. That would be cool." And so I did, but suddenly, super quickly, it morphed until we were making this album. It wasn't planned. Serendipity plays a big part of life, you know. And so, you know, this album was made called Rodeo for the Sheepish, and it's really neat. What we do a lot, we do this regular show at Beyond Baroque where it's called Ellyn Maybe's Poetry Rodeo, and people come up and read, and the band improvises. We do some of our own songs, and people in the band, if they feel like doing a solo, do that. So it's a kind of eclectic event that we've been doing since, I guess, I think since around September 2010 at Beyond Parole. And we've had really interesting things happen. The band got to go. We were recommended by Jackson Browne to go to Glastonbury Festival.
Wonderful.
So we ended up on the acoustic stage, and then we did some shows in Ireland, and a couple of us did some stuff. We did some stuff that did a show at Shakespeare and Company where we did a poetry rodeo there. So we do that, and that's like everybody's really doing a lot of different things. It's a really interesting group of people, and so we play there about once a month, or if other things come up. And then only just in March of this year, 2013, I was thinking it would be really cool, to do something like a duet music project with Robbie, because we've been writing a lot, and our work together, it seemed like a really interesting thing in addition to the band to do something like focus like that. And that has been so cool.
Ellyn and Robin.
Yeah,
Robbie.
well, that's the name of our group, is Ellyn and Robbie, but his last name is Robbie. I mean, it's Robbie Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
Yeah, and Harlan is Harlan Steinberger, and Tommy is Tommy Jordan. Harlan and Tommy, they worked really closely on Rodeo for the Sheepish. Like he did the choruses, like this, and he did the singing, and he did the art direction. There's other people in the band. Danny Moynihan's in the band, and Dave Rollicke plays with us, and Paul Bushnell, and John Osmond. We have different people. It's a pretty, it depends, but everyone's schedule varies, so it's never for certain who will be there, because Paul Bushnell, he's really busy. He's a bassist. He plays like a Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's band, so he's very busy, with that and touring. So it's a really amazing group of people that have a lot of different things they do, are very seasoned musicians.
When you went abroad with the band, how was the band received?
It was cool. I mean, it's funny, we played the acoustic stage at Glastonbury is so big. I mean, it's one of the main stages, so it was kind of trippy. It's so different from anywhere we played, so it's unique. It was interesting. It's cool. And then we went into Ireland, and we got to play a lot of we played at a literary center, an art center more, even not all different arts. We played at a bookstore. We played, the art center was in Drogheda, the bookstore was in Belfast, and the one in Paris. There's a couple of us did that. Tommy and Cyril, who is in a band called Bombshell and stuff that Tommy plays and writes with in France. So we did a rodeo there, poetry rodeo, and that was fun. A lot of people participated too.
What I have seen with you performing with the band, you have your poem, and then there's music in the background, and you sing, and they sing or they perform. Do you modify the poems when you perform with the band, or the poems are the way they...
Each one has its different process. When I work with Tommy on songs, a lot of times, sometimes he takes the poem and he can melodize it so it can be sung. So some of those become sung, and then other ones are written, the ones from Rodeo for the Sheepish. I read the poems, and Harlan composed the music. Tommy composed the choruses, and then when I heard what the music was, I did some re-recording, because then I had an idea what the tempo was, because I just first read the poems, without knowing anything about what would be happening musically.
I see. Do you make choices based on the possibility of the poem to be performed with music when you write your own poetry, or there are two different themes?
A lot of times, even with some of the other, Danny, I've done some stuff where he's, given me some music and I write a poem for it. Sometimes what I'll just read a poem and they just improvise.
If you have to read your poems now without the band, do you miss it?
It a lot depends on the vibe of what's happening. A wonderful reading where you feel connected, that people are resonating, however it happens, is terrific, and it's neat, yeah.
Are you from the East Coast?
I'm from Milwaukee, and
Okay.
I that's Wisconsin, and I came here right before 11th grade, and then I did the 11th and 12th grade and a little bit of college, but I always wanted to move to New York, and it was pretty, like, people were kind of nervous because it was kind of scary. I was really shy, but it's funny how I'm really shy, but a lot of times that won't stop me from, like, you know what I mean? It has a point to, like, so I decided no one would really take me there because they were pretty cautious. So I just decided to move there and everything, and that was where the first poem came from when I was older. And so I think it was very important travel, like when I lived in Prague for film school and stuff, and I think places are good catalysts for a lot to do that. So, but I've lived a lot of times in Los Angeles most of my life, and I think it's just getting more and more interesting. It's just you could live here for like so many decades and you're not going to see it all. It's just kind of ever-changing, and there's a lot. It's pretty amazing.
How would you describe the poetry scene in Los Angeles?
Very vibrant. It's so vibrant because it's also so big. I mean, there's stuff going on in Los Angeles, but not so far away is what's going on, say, in Orange County, what's going on in San Gabriel Valley, and, Ventura, and just so many places. And then that's not even California itself. Then you got all in Northern California, and that's the whole thing, and all kinds of. It's so huge, but I've always found it to be very compelling and welcoming and kind of under the radar, because some other things get a little bit more visibility, but it's always been strong. I mean, there's really great writers that have come out of here, and since, there was a West Coast Beats, like the Venice Beats. There's a long history of amazing things happening in Southern California.
Do you see movements or styles that you recognize?
There is definitely, I think people are inspired by different things. I mean, a lot of just really unique voices, and like most people wouldn't know them necessarily outside of the area. Like, this is why something like this is important, like the whole Poetry.LA channel, because now with things like, YouTube, all that kind of stuff, people can check out things that they might not see or be somewhere where they might miss it. It just opens, things are pretty trippy these days, It's just.
Would you mind ending the interview with a poem about Los Angeles?
Sure, that would be a pleasure. This is something, when I lived abroad, I was there like fall 2003 to spring 2005, and I wrote a whole bunch of poems there, and I didn't write screenplays. In screenplay class, I wrote poems, so like kind of cinematic poems. and so I was reflecting kind of on stuff I missed about Los Angeles when I was there, because it's really quite different. It's beautiful there, but it's different, So this is my thoughts of what I missed from there. So, Los Angeles. Some things I miss about my hometown, which I'm considering LA, since I've lived the last very many years there. Family and friends, wonderful events at the Screen Actors Guild, Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences, Skirball Center, American Cinematheque, New Beverly, LACMA, Lemley, Landmark, libraries, bookstores, and no language barriers. The Museum of Television and Radio, Vidiot's Video Store, the Pacific Ocean, the mild climate, let me repeat, the mild climate, the ABC rating systems of restaurants by the health inspector, no MSG on restaurant menus, and especially no smoking inside, miss cranberry juice and corned beef, miss the books, tapes, CDs, and records piled around my room. I miss reading a newspaper every day with breakfast. I miss public radio, public television, and theater. I miss the ducks crossing Ocean Avenue in Venice. I miss all the quirky films that only open on the coast. I miss listening to my friends play music and read poetry. I miss them listening to me. All of us familiar enough to request that poem or that song by just an image or lyric. I miss the Iguana Cafe, but that was years ago, before we scattered to other cities, tour buses, movie sets, death, and other places, medieval and modern.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. This has been so awesomely cool. You're so rocking. Thank you.